Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Wow, let me get that off. Hello. Welcome, gatekeepers. How are you all doing? My goodness. And Edna, I agree, honey. I agree. How's everybody doing? People were rushing to get here. I was rushing to get here. I'm growing out my hair. Look at there. Look at all this gray. Look at all that gray. That's insane. But I hear that all the cool kids are going gray and white and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I figured, why not? Let's just see what happens, right? My granny had gray hair. My other granny had gray hair. Well, hers was red and gray. So we'll see what happens. You never know. You guys get to watch it in real time. And this little man right here, I'm telling you what, he's so teeny tiny. He's like just a little inch square. But let's bring him in here, you old rattlesnake. You're gray too. Ain't nothing wrong with gray as a
Yeah.
baby.
I'm ahead of the trend. I'm a
Yeah,
trendsetter.
yeah. That's
I
what I'm
was gray
saying.
when gray
I mean, I
wasn't
kind of
cool.
like it. I mean,
I
every
started
which way
streak right in the front like a skunk stripe in my 30s. So,
did you? Yeah, yeah.
people accuse me of doing it on purpose.
Did they really? I don't know. A lot of my sisters went. They started going gray. I guess in their 30s.
Yeah,
Salt and pepper.
I already
Now
got
it looks dark, but it's not. It's just all gray and like this blonde and this red.
I
It's
got the
just.
worst hair on YouTube anyway. So
Oh, you do
I don't
not.
care if it turns gray. I just don't want it to turn loose, and there ain't
Don't
no
turn
danger there.
loose.
Got a
Don't
head
turn
full.
loose.
My daddy
There we
died
go.
2 days before his 82nd birthday. He had a head full of black hair.
Yeah. Well, there you go. There you go. Hello, Vixen Doe. Hello, Ted. Hello, everybody in here, and Edna and Lindsay. Everybody, lots and lots
Got to
of
say
bacon, lots
hi
of heart.
to
D Rock,
Mrs.
Midnight.
Steve Stockton, Midnight Society. I love you,
Hello,
Nicole.
sweetheart. Hi, sweetheart. How you doing, Ted? Let's see who else we got here. We got Slow Mo and we need like
What
chat
was it you
uncommon
said one
belief.
time to slow motion? You said, what if slow
James.
was your name and you were slow? Well, how ironic would that be?
It was well, no, I think it was they applied
Something
for
like that.
something. They applied for a job that was fast or something, some kind of
Nicole and I
job
were
that
talking about that
required some
just a few
speed.
minutes ago. We were trying to remember what you said. And I
Yeah,
always
I
used
don't
to
know.
tell
Do
my
you remember
bosses
Slow?
back when I had a regular job, they'd say
Jack,
something
hey
about
Jack.
myself. I said, I got this speed and one slower, boss.
There you go. Hey Jack, how you doing? So welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. If you would be so kind to go back out,
Well,
hit that thumbs
hit
up
that
for
like
me.
button.
Hit that like. That would be great. Let's see. Slow said I started going
Smack
gray
that
and
like at
bald at
Ocean Money.
25 and still going gray. Well, there you go. I mean, nothing like slow, right? Everything slow. Is everything slow motion? Is everything? I mean, if you started going
So
gray and
much.
bald at 25, and it's what 30 years later, and you're still going, still
My
going.
brother
It's
started
funny.
going gray in his late
Hey,
20s. He
Monica.
had the fringe going on.
Hey, Monica. Welcome in. Welcome in. So, what have you been up to this week? It's been a crazy week for me.
It's been a crazy week for me, too. All kinds
I'm
of stuff
still
going on.
recovering.
Channel continuing to blow up over there. Let me see what we're at
Wonderful,
right now.
wonderful.
Haven't checked it in a few minutes.
Now,
Um,
which one you got? Like a half a
yeah,
dozen, don't you?
I got five. Among the missing, 74,689 subscribers. So thanks everybody over there. And Nicole, Midnight Society and I have a channel together, Insomniac Radio Theater. That's blowing up. A lot of people are finding that. I've got
There you
8 hours
go.
of rain over there. You got to go check that out. Um,
Nice.
Insomniac Radio Theater. If one of you lovely
Doing
mods could
well,
drop a link
Monica.
for me.
Much better, sweetheart. Yeah, when the mods drop, do you have a link to your link tree, Steve? Do we have the link?
I
I know
do.
we've got the tree, but is there a link to the link
It's
tree?
let me find it here.
I don't even know if that's possible.
I tried to type it in the chat and the other night and I messed it up big time.
Well, you just let one of these stellar Black Ops mods in here do it. We've got some great mods. And I'll tell you what, guys, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We really appreciate each and every one of our subscribers here. And it really helps get it out there. You know, you got YouTube to notice me. They only took down one or two of my videos. They send you a little thing and says, we're going to take down this video because you said this at 56 seconds. Go and see. And then you hit it and then it's not there. So you can't even go and see. So I don't even know. And they don't tell you why. You know, you have to try to figure it out. And oh, I ain't got time for
Yeah,
that.
don't you
They're
love
going to
that?
take down videos.
You said a wordy dirt, and we're not going to let you do that. And
Yep.
we're not
Yep.
going to tell you what you did, but don't do it again.
So you better watch it live because you never know what it's going to be after the fact. You might
Midnight Society's
see a
got the link
clip or
there for IRTYT13. That's Insomniac Radio Theater. And then here's a link tree. That's everything that I'm up to,
there
including
you
if you
go.
want signed copies of my books. She and I have an Etsy store together. We have
There
vintage
it is.
paranormal and occult books and things in there too. Now
Good
that's
Lord.
that's my YouTube channel.
They
But
got all
if you
kind of stuff here. We got Among the Missing and the
13 Past
Insomniac.
Midnight,
Look at all
Insomniac
that.
Radio
Hey,
Theater,
Laura.
Saucer Cult, True Crime Breakdown, and I think
My
there's one
gosh,
more.
something licking my leg. I hope to God it's a cat.
Maybe Mario or something.
I was just like, let me see. Yeah, it's a kitty. We're good. Can you imagine like here live? If it had been something else, like I don't
Have
know what.
you ever heard that story about the urban legend about the girl that heard the noise in the night and she reached down and the dog would lick her hand and make her
Oh, I
feel
have.
safe. And then the next morning, I'll tell a clean version of it. She woke up and found that the dog had been locked outside all night, and then somebody had left a note on her dresser that said, "People can lick too." Ooh, isn't
Oh,
that creepy?
that's so creepy. Some of those where I've read where they do like the 2 sentence creepy pasta.
Yep, love
It's like
those.
that you have to do it or a real shit. You have to get to the point quickly. You know what I mean? So I'm not capable of that. If sometimes I can, it depends on how mad I am. But there you go. So we're having some tea tonight. I am having a mixture of candy cane. Name that movie, candy cane, candy cane. Every time I hear candy cane, I think of that. I'm gonna see how long it takes to chat to come up with that movie. That's all you get, candy cane, candy cane. So I got candy, which is obviously peppermint, and then I got a yogi here. Oh, this is the echinacea and some other good stuff. So nice hot tea. Got the candles lit. Steve, are you ready to do the final
I'm ready. I got
chapter?
my JFG coffee. People from down south.
Very
Oh no,
nice.
I'm sorry. No, it's not JFG. It's Maxwell House. I made a faux
I
pas
got
there, as it's.
I got my
And I
Ouija.
got a bottle of
Ouija cup.
black cherry sparkling
Mm-hmm.
water,
There you go.
and
There you go.
that's all the accoutrement I have tonight.
Yup. Why pasta? I don't know, but somebody came up with a good joke the other day, and I wish I could remember it, but it was funny. There's something about creepy pasta, like why would it be called creepy pasta and not? I don't know. It was another kind of pasta. Like, see, I'll
Creepy
never mind.
spaghetti,
If I
creepy
think of
bow
it
tie,
later, yeah, it
creepy
was it was
macaroni,
something to do with rigatoni, rigor mortis, something. It was
creepy
another play
rigatoni,
on a pasta name.
rigor mortis rigatoni,
Yeah, it was something
rigmarole.
like that. Don't know the movie. It was Joyride. Joyride. Candy cane. They were talking over the CBs, and it was two guys and a girl, and they were messing with truckers on the CB, and like pulling pranks. And this one took it real serious, and that's all she wrote through the whole movie. It was kind of like Duel in a way, because it was like they were chasing, and they couldn't get away, and
That
this
was
big
a good movie. Now,
oh,
isn't
Duel
that
was
available here
fantastic.
on YouTube? Can't you watch
YouTube,
Duel here? Do you have to
you can.
maybe pay? If you've never seen that, Dennis Weaver and
So good.
pretty
I
much
think it was
just Dennis
Spielberg's
Weaver
first. I
and
think
a
it was,
truck. It was
yeah,
Spielberg's first feature film.
I think
It
it
is
was.
amazing, and it was a TV movie. I think was the sometimes that happens. Salem's Lot, that was a TV movie,
Yep.
and
Yep.
just every now and then
There's
you
been
get
some good
those that
ones.
just knock one out of the park.
There's been some definite good ones. Now the movie tonight, if you have not seen it, of course it would go with tonight's. It's in all the links on part 1, 2, and 3, and that would be Villisca living with a mystery. And we have those links in our descriptions for the other shows. This is part 4. And the whole reason I did this, I got with Steve and I told him, and I've mentioned it a few times, but why would you go over such a dastardly murder? And again, a lot of people say it was like the most horrible thing in the United States. And, there's all this hyperbole. Of course it was horrible. But the thing is we've discovered along the way that it wasn't quite as uncommon as we'd like to think, because there was 238 separate incidents. That's not victims, that's incidents that happen along not just that train route, but all through the Midwest. And that is not including The New Orleans Jazzman axe murders. There was plenty of them. I can't remember how many at this point. I don't want to misquote, but
I
totally
think it
different.
was 6, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, totally different, but definitely just as horrible. I mean, any axe murder would be, but it was more common than people think, because all through this case we found out from Dr. Epperly that even that one guy, I forget his first name, but his last name was Moore. He was no relation to the Moores in the house, but his mother and grandmother were killed with an axe. And just so many different things. There was another guy that was part of the suspects. His first name was Andy. I forget his last name. He was one of the suspects earlier in, because he always slept with he slept with a hatchet, not an axe. There's a difference. A hatchet's a lot smaller and
He
the
slept
handle's a
with
lot
it, like
smaller.
in the bed
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, because I
That's
mean,
weird.
but if you think about it, maybe there was a lot going on. I mean, somebody's out there killing people with an axe. So,
Yeah.
what are you going to
Uh,
do?
yeah, I like that, sleeping with a hatchet under your pillow. Now, some people sleep with a pistol under their pillow. Midnight
Machetes.
Society, Nicole, she sleeps with a pillow under her pistol.
There you go.
You heard
There
it
you
here
go. You can
first.
a machete in one thing and a buck knife, and don't think
Oh,
people don't have that kind of stuff.
we had
Hey,
a mass
Bernice,
shooting. We had a mass shooting here in Farmington today, just down the street, like a
did you?
block or two.
Did you
Yeah,
really?
they're
Oh
calling it a mass
goodness.
shooting. 3 people got shot and 2
Yeah, it
got
was
killed,
slow.
and 2 cops got shot. But
Oh, that's
yeah,
awful.
there was I heard helicopters, and they were driving by on the loudspeaker telling people to stay in your houses and stuff. I didn't stay in my house.
Oh,
I went
Bernice, we
swimming.
love you so much, honey. Let's just take a second to send Bernice
Yeah,
and her
bless her heart.
her
Let's
sweet
send her
fur
some love
baby,
there.
Mr. B, just some love and light and some strength. I mean, that's like the main thing that you can hope for right now is strength and love, and that kind of energy that just gets you both through it.
And
But
it's hardest thing you'll ever have to do, but be
oh
waiting for
gosh,
you on Rainbow Bridge.
absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I will reiterate that Rob Guttrow and Dale
Stimulate.
McCarthy,
That's
so many
exactly what
people.
I did, except it wasn't a 45, it was a 9 millimeter. I wasn't gonna
Mm,
stay in my house and catch one in the head. I went out there and
mhm.
sat on the porch and had a 9 in the pocket of my hoodie. If I saw anybody coming up here, "Come on up here, sit on the porch and talk to me."
Mhm.
I would,
There you go.
you're gonna catch
But
me in the house.
those babies, and listen to me, Rob Guttrow and Dale McCarthy, they tell that's the first thing that those fur babies do is come back and tell you thanks so much for helping me over, and the whole time they're also teaching you of that unconditional love, and how to deal with the feelings and stuff. It's difficult. I went through it in October, and I'll tell you what, that one almost took me with them. Absolutely. It was friends and love and kindness, and going right back out and getting two more to love. That's what got me through. But it's hard every day, and that's a fact. Welcome, Emmy and Stimulate. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, yeah. So the first three, we talked to this gentleman right here. Wonderful, wonderful man, Dr. Ed Epperly. And the book is Fiend Incarnate, the Villisca Axe Murders of 1912. This is the definitive read for Villisca. Anything that's not in here, I would say throw it out. Throw it out. If you're an investigator, if you're just interested in true crime or mysteries, unsolved mysteries, which this is both, or if you're a paranormal investigator and you're looking to try to sort this one out. The whole reason I did this big 4 block was because I'm trying to get the word out that places like the Lizzie Borden house, and I definitely spent time on that in the last episode, speaking of how when everybody's going in there, and calling out these people and who did the murder, and what's it feel like to be killed with an axe, or whatever questions they're asking, or whatever, making up stories like the incest story, or Lizzie did it and all this other stuff. Well, I think we kind of proved that there's a really good chance she didn't. I think she knows who did, but I don't think she did it. And you can actually continue to call back and forth these these people, because gosh, guys, you got to remember they're people, right? And your energy and the constant bringing up and the questions and the hour after hour, night after night, or whatever it may be, over time, 100 years, whenever it started, 10 years back doing this, or who knows, the Ouija boards and things like that, we know it caused a problem in the Lizzie Borden house. And again, I'm going to say that it has caused a problem here. And I got to talk to some fantastic mediums. One of them you may know, that have been in here, that are trying to help the people and trying to sort it. And Steve and I know, just from all the many things that we've talked about, Steve, on different episodes about tulpas. Just think about what you can create out of just your energy of continually going in and going into a place and talking to Jim and asking Jim, did you do this, or what's going on? And you've got an EVP and Jim says, yeah, I did it, it was great, or whatever. Are you really talking to Jim? Did you create Jim? Has people over time created Jim? Or is Jim just some earthbound spirit that came by and go, hey, what's going over there? There's a lot of stuff going over there. People want to talk, so I'm going to go over there and mess with it, or I'm going to go see what I can do, or whatever it may be. There's
That may
lots of
not have
levels
been
here.
there to begin with, and people messing around with stuff in there caused it to happen. It may not even be related at all. It's just there. There's
So
been
true.
instances of hauntings like that, where what
Yep.
was there didn't have anything to do with anything there. It was something that came there, because
It's so
that stuff
true.
attracts each other.
Yep. Yep. And especially anybody, if you think about, if you have a lot of young people, especially teenagers, you think about the energy that they carry with them and going into these houses and just trying to get a quick scare. Listen, I did it. We went to the Green Light Cemetery. We went to, different places, like Crybaby Bridge, or the White Lady Bridge, or the hanging barn, or, whatever field it was, or
I
this is
forgot
the
about the
movie
hanging
here.
barn. There was one of those in
Yeah.
East Tennessee. There was a hanging church too. There's an old church down at Elsie Gate, I think, in the area in Tennessee there. And supposedly, if you went in there at night, you can see somebody swinging from the rafters or something. I went in there and didn't see nothing, but it was
Mm,
creepy, and we got in
mm.
trouble because we weren't supposed to be in there.
Yeah, and as
It
far
was
as all the questions in the chat about animals and stuff like that, I can tell you, in my decades of nothing I've ever been more sure of, other than love that lives on and love is the strongest energy. Listen, animals go boom right over, because they
yeah.
don't have any of the earthly burdens, and
They-
they go. And that's
exactly.
what you got to do. You got to tell them it's okay to go, that you're going to be fine, and that when they go, they can come back after they get healed up, and they can come back in your dream and let you know that they're okay, or something like that. But the best thing you can do is say, it's good, it's fine for you to go. I remember when I said that to Mr. Dickens, and he just looked at me and he just kind of,
No.
he was,
And then I've known
you
people that
let
their
him know
pets
that.
came. I spent
Hmm.
the night with a guy one time, slept in his guest room. Middle of the night, his cat crawled up on it, jumped up on the bed, cuddled up down near my feet, and was purring. And the next morning, I told him, I said, if you're looking for your cat last night, it came and got in the bed with me. He said, Steve, that cat died 2 years ago. He
Hmm.
said, but that's happened to me too. And he said
Yep.
he must like you if he came and got in the bed with you and started purring.
And that's true. And they usually hang around because, they know you need them. They're more worried about you than you are of them. You have that love bond, but you're going to absolutely, that they're the first ones that greet you, whether you know it or not. It's an amazing thing from all your lifetimes. That's really cool. But this is right. Stimulate EVPs, mediums, no matter how much a spirit knows, there's zero ability for us to know it is who it says it is. That's 100%. Because I've been in a room where we all saw and felt similar. Well, excuse me, let me fix that. We all felt similar. We all got the same vibes and the same things in our filters. Now I'm talking about people that had abilities that I was with and myself. But each person, after we left, and you go outside and you talk about, you got your notes and everything, we're all talking about the same at this point in time. We were saying entity because we didn't know whether it was had been human or whatever, but we figured it all out. He was presenting to us in three different ways all at the same time. So whether it's something that they can you have you manifest in your own mind's eye or whatever it may be. One saw a boy, one saw a young man, a very disheveled young man, very angry, very upset, very agitated, and the other just saw this dark mist, just saw his energy. So that's an absolute true statement. So basically, what you need to do is you need to understand that this is how these things work. It is so difficult to sort it. And I've got some examples here to show you how difficult this place was to sort. And the reason it is because so much of people going in, just like I said, Lizzie Borden, and now you can rent the house and stay overnight. Now what I was going to do was show you little clips of different claims that people had made, and I thought better of it. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to say, and I don't want these people to think I'm picking on them. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying, okay, well, this paranormal group went in there and thought they got a hold of a little girl or a little boy or something like that, and moved the ball and the closet door open and closed, and they've got some message on the EVP after they said who did it, and the voice said Andy. Well, Andy was the name of the guy who slept with the hatchet, excuse me. But if you were watching the episode before, now this is just like I said, on YouTube or on Rumble, this paranormal group going out there and doing their thing, and they were talking about the suspects before they went in there. So did they get Andy because that's the real killer? Did you get a ghost that was going to speak the truth to you? Or were they just feeding you back what you wanted to hear? Or is it some kind of, now this is really out there, but I think it's possible, almost you projecting it yourself? We don't know that much about energy. We're just learning. But if we can move things with our minds, telekinesis or PK or anything like that, if it's possible for a 13-year-old girl or a 16-year-old, doesn't matter the age, or a young man at that for that reason, to have abilities that are suppressed, and they're so suppressed that energy finds a way to manifest itself, right? And creates pots flying around the kitchen or drawers opening and closing to the point where they think they have a haunting, then what isn't possible with energy in the mind? Think about it. So how much do we really know? Because we got an EVP that says, well, I'm the killer. Because I'm telling you right now, if I wanted to, I could pull up about 20 little video clips that would tell you that every single one of the people that I pulled got the answer to who the killer is. And pretty much all of them are different. So who's right? So you see where I'm coming from? That's part of it. Now, what are we exactly doing too when we go in there and we're talking to these kids, and whether we're sincere, genuinely care, do you know what I mean? We have the utmost kind intentions. Still, what are you doing when you're going in there and you're sitting in there and talking about the night that these people were murdered and things like that? What happens after all of that over time? And I can tell you, any place like the Farnsworth or Gettysburg battlefield and things like that, there were ghosts there that weren't willing to talk to anybody. And when I went in there and everybody dispersed away and we got to, exchange a little bit of energy and vibe and stuff like that, and they saw my intent, they came right up and started talking. We just got down to business. And that's, in some cases, I think that it's very true. Intent is all about it. And I'm not saying these people have a bad intent, although some of them obviously do. They're making up stories. They're taking a horrible murder and making it sound even worse than it was, if that's even possible, to get clicks and things like that. So what I'm doing this for is, if you're a serious paranormal investigator, if you're someone who really cares about evidence, or you then absolutely go. Do what, go wherever you want to go, insane asylum, whatever. But you have to look at, what am I getting and how am I getting it and who's giving it to me? Because I think that really, at this point in time, if we're going to do these things, we should kind of get an idea of all the things that can happen and all the things that we might be causing or that can happen to us. Because again, if you're going you're going to a place where you're dealing with a serial killer that's possibly killed hundreds of people with an axe, how delightful do you think it would be for that person to come home and follow you home to your house and start messing with you and yours? Because it's happened. It's happened multiple times that I know of personally. So those are the things I wanted to put out there. Cautions for yourself, cautions for your the everybody in your group, and also maybe think about how can you do that investigation with these things in mind that might be different. And that's a personal thing. But tonight I wanted to show you a couple things from somebody that I've learned to trust over the years, you know, and that would be Amy Allen of the Dead Files. And I have a couple of little
Yeah.
sound bites. Yeah, real
And
deal,
her and
real deal.
Steve DeShambo, is that his name? Get them
This,
together. She's got the
yeah,
psychic side, she's got the investigative side, the cop side of it, and it just totally works. But I love it where she's gone into a place cold, absolutely cold, and she doesn't want to know anything about it. The less she knows, the
no,
better. She gets these impressions. She will draw a picture of what she sees in her mind in there. And then Steve's over here digging in the police
hmm
reports and stuff, and he actually has a picture of the suspect or the murderer, the victim, or whatever. And
hmm
9 times out of 10, it's almost a dead match. No pun intended.
hmm And sometimes they do disagree. Like she'll say something, but I want you to keep in mind when you're watching an hour show. Really, when you break it down after commercials, you probably get what 40 minutes.
42 minutes.
Usually, Amy, depending on the property, will go in and it'll be 2-3 days if she's walking through. Like she can only do like a part at a time. So I can't speak on, Villisca. I think she told me it was like 4 days. Maybe this might have been the one, it was 8 days, but I don't want to misquote her because I get that one and the Lizzie Borden one mixed up because I've talked to her about both. Because to me, they were so similar in the result of the aftermath. So that's why, I was asking her about it. But with this one, the minute I brought it up, you could see her. She was like, "Oh man," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know, honey. I get it. But there's a lot to learn from this. So Amy gets that her abilities through her dad, and it's great because he was able to guide her very young. You know what I mean? And she's a physical medium to the point of she has gotten physically ill. She knows she's got problems with being sick, and we things like that hit her because this takes so much out of you. So much out of you. I've known cases where she has said that it's literally put her in the hospital, and it's not funny. Now, when she goes in there, she'll do the walk. And like you'll see the guy that goes, she used to be married to him. I can't remember his name, but he'll go in and cover everything. She's not influenced by stuff. When
Mhm.
she admittedly, when she went into Villisca, she knew there had been a murder there. She knew a family had been killed. And I think she knew it had been unsolved, but I'm not 100% on that one. Um, but this one, I do believe this one was the one where she'd had to take 8 days because it kept draining her so bad. One of the major things that she says when she walked onto the property was the same when she walked onto the property at the Lizzie Borden house. The minute she walked in there, she said, "There's a Ouija board behind the couch. People continue to call the spirits." She says, "That's got to stop." Okay. And another big thing, and I won't tell you exactly what she said because I about it, but she almost has to battle with the property owners to go, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" So as we go through tonight, I'm going to pull up some of that. I wanted to pull up this map because Aunt Edna brought up, and so did Steve and I were talking about this when we were reading the book, Man from the Train, written by James McCarthy. Mr. James is actually a baseball statistician, and his daughter, a very good investigative little journalist there, they pulled up a lot of stuff from newspapers and things like that, and pretty much said that they believe that this is part of the serial killer named Mueller, who was a German immigrant, and they followed it up with the reason things stopped here in America is because he went back to Germany, and right after that, I believe that's when that those massive axe murders and started happening out there with Hyder Flecken or whatever the thing is. Put it up there, checks. You know I'll never say it right, but um, it's viable. All the times we talked to Ed Epperly, and he said it here. I believe it was in number 3 in the Q&A episode where he was talking about that, and he says, it's pretty viable, theory, but he would like to see if we could find some. Thank you. Here it is. You can count on Glenn. Boy, he's got it right there. There it is. Hinterkaifeck. Kaifeck? Kaif. How's your German, Steve? Achtung.
Not that good.
Well, there you go, guys. Read it for yourself. Sound it out together. And
Google's got it. Let's see.
but yeah, we might do that one as well as the Donloff Pass. That was something else too. But this one, as you can see, Villisca is kind of the hub. You can see the train tracks going through here. I'll tell you what. There is at least, I want to say, between 28 and 30 stories that they have in the book, The Man from the Train, where the house was just a couple blocks from the train, done at the house. Yep, there it is. Thanks, Slow. Yeah, that's another crazy one. I don't have a clue on that. Well, that's going to take a couple weeks of digging on that one to be able to present it. But Hinterkaifeck, here we go. Hinterkaifeck. That's not so bad when you got it all broken up like that. Thank you so much, Glenn.
I couldn't find a meaning. The term translated from German to English gets the same thing. Hinter, I believe that means far. I don't know what a kaifek is. So,
I think it means axe murder. So, as you can see, Villisca is right here. I don't know if you guys can see the little arrow moving around in my hand here, but it's right in the hub, right here between Montgomery County, Adams County, Page County, and Taylor, right in there. And I believe the Bloodhounds got it right, because as they went from the house, they took the walk almost like around the block, a couple of blocks, but it avoided the center of town and then went down and out to the not away. It's fun name, but it's Noda, not away river. And then they think he walked up the center, a little bit along the river in the water, and then right off into the train tracks. Probably caught a freight train because they move real slow through. Dr. Eppley doesn't think he was on a passenger train unless he just jumped up and hugged the side, which again is possible. We've all seen the movies of, tramps or transients, whatever, jumping in and out of freight cars, and there you go. Now, the funny thing is when I talked to Amy, she was done, telling me her thoughts on it. And some of the things she said, I cannot repeat here, but I will tell you this. She was trying her best with the owner of the property, trying to get him to stop what they were doing. It has caused some problems. There's a man, I believe he's still there. Don't want to misquote it, but if you go to the website, you can see him. I think his name is John, long black beard, has a couple of kids of his own. And he and his family live in the Peckham house next door. And he's now the caretaker, and he gives the historical tours. And he seems to be sincere in wanting to do the history of it, and doesn't really talk so much about the paranormal. But he describes to Amy, not only in the episode, if you guys haven't seen it, go back and see it. It's on Daily Motion or whatever. I think it's in season 5, maybe somewhere around in there. And he's trying to come to grips with this whole thing, because since he's been given these tours, since he's living in this house, now he's got problems. So much so, he says the upstairs is just so haunted in the house he's living in that he moved his family downstairs. And he's got, at the time, he had a young infant and another little girl, I believe at least one other child who was a toddler. So can you imagine? Now, what he was being haunted by is an irate woman, an older woman, that keeps hovering over him and the kids and screaming, but he can't hear what she's saying. And he wasn't sure whether it was this Mary Peckham who found, who discovered the murders that morning. If you recall the story, around 7 o'clock in the morning or something, she was hanging laundry, and she's the one that looked in the windows, couldn't find anything, called Ross Moore, the brother of Joe Moore, uh, the slain father, and then it went from there. I don't know anything else about Mary Peckham other than what Dr. Epperly said. And if anybody would know, he would, after 67 years of study in this case. He said that one of the things she always said was, I don't care, but F.F. Jones got something to do with this. And people put a lot of stock in that because she was the neighbor and she was the one who found him. So other than that, Dr. Epperly said that was it with her. He never said that she was forever bothered about the murders, or it destroyed her life or made her life, or she wrote a book or went on tour and gave seminar, and he never said anything like that. So I can't imagine why this angry older woman would be Peckham. Um, and that was just how I went into it. I just like, wow, that doesn't seem right. I figured it would probably be Sarah, because here's this guy going in on all these tours, I don't know how many times a day, and giving these tours and talking about her and her children being murdered. If you were an earthbound spirit, wouldn't you follow him home to get him to stop? And he just couldn't seem to put it together. It's like, do you think she's upset about it? Are you serious? If she's there and she has the ability to understand what you're doing, of course she's going to be upset by it. Wouldn't you say, Steve?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, isn't that enough? 111 years, if this woman is
Yeah,
stuck there, and she may not be stuck. She might be staying there because one or more of her children, or those other Stillinger girls, or whatever, might be stuck, and she's not leaving without him. And I've seen that before. She might have the ability to leave. Um, the only one that I've never heard of being in there, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys have heard it, is Joe, the father. Never heard of him being in there or anything else. And Amy is saying that there's an essence there of him. There's definitely that energy created by constantly bringing up his name. But there you go. Like she said to me, that's not really him. It's the essence of the memory and the energy people have put into it. So how do you go about sorting this mess? How do you go about being paranormal investigators and wanting to go in there? And what would you do if you're in there? Are you trying to find out who did it? How are you going to know? 111 years you had, I think it sat empty, and Ed could tell you this better than I could, but through the investigations, I think it sat empty for a while, then it sold, and they tried so much to do with this house to where they just wanted to rent it for like $1. It started at $1 and then it went up to like $8 a month or something like that, just to get somebody in there. This one family stayed for a while, and in the movie Villisca Living with Mystery, you'll see the older lady talking about when she was a young girl living in there, and she said, oh, well, we were in there in that one room, and there was still, the wallpaper was still there, and you could see there was brown streaks above, the way the walls go, they kind of go up, and then you've got that slanted ceiling. And she said there was a piece of wallpaper that was still up there and had brown streaks on it. We always assumed that was blood. Well, Dr. Epperly tells me that that's not possible because they redid that whole thing inside. So here she is, probably a woman of 80, on a movie, saying that, the whole time she was living there were still blood streaks in the wallpaper, when he knows that there was no such thing because they had changed the whole thing out. So, I don't know. Where do you go to find the truth? I guess you have to keep doing what we did. Go back, dig down, throw everything out that Dr. Epperly has thrown out. He basically bases everything on what the first people who went in there saw, what the police saw and what they wrote down and what the doctors saw and wrote down. And if you didn't see the other 3 episodes, please go back and watch. They're doing very well. It's odd how the third one has got like double what the first one has, and the third one is just like kind of a recap of the last trial. So if you haven't seen the first one, that's the one where Dr. Epperly painstakingly goes through and describes every detail as best he can do. And again, 67 years, you're not going to get better. And he has no, after all that time, what means a lot to Ed is his integrity and his honor and trying to put the truth out. So if you are planning on going to Iowa, if you are planning on going to Villisca to visit or to do an investigation, I would highly recommend reading his book first. And also go and watch the episode that Dead Files did and try to see where Amy's coming from. Now, here's the thing about the episode. Like I said, I think she walked it 8 days. And if I'm wrong, it's a sheer mistake because one of them was 3 days and the other one was 8. And I can't remember which one's which, like I said. But this one took so much out of her. And so like she'd spend almost like a couple hours walking through the barn. And then, a couple hours walking the property and and the Peckham house next door. And then she'd do like, take a break and then do the rest of it. Okay. Really taking her time. And not just taking her time because it took so much out of her and made her sick and ill, but because there was so much to sort through. She was actually getting readings of almost like, it's the oddest thing I've ever heard. She's getting readings of a conspiracy of 4 men planning the murder. So clear, like it almost happened, yet not quite. So she has to kind of sort it and think, is that a tulpa? Just continuously telling that story, has it created a whole nother, almost another reality of this murder after 111 years, of the townspeople talking about it and putting that energy in there? Because remember, Villisca was basically cut in half, and half the people thought that F.F. Jones, the senator, and he owned a hardware store. I have his picture here. I'll find it. Owned a hardware store, and let me see if I can find him. A pretty prominent character. Ed Epperly says basically F.F. Jones was an arrogant son of a bitch, and he was. He also was in charge of something. Here's Mary. Here's Mary Peckham. This is the lady that lived next door. There is the barn. You can see the little bit corner of her house right here. You see that window behind there? Behind the Villisca house? That's their barn. And that's Mary Peckham's house. That's how close she was. The 8 people being murdered didn't hear anything. Something's wild. I'm not saying she did. I'm saying that seems strange. Does it not? That's it, slow-mo. That's exactly what I'm saying. The paranormal made paranormal. Yeah, and it's totally possible. There's also multiple people that will tell you that they've been there and there's something evil in there. Well, of course you'd feel something evil in there. The same thing is happening in, I will find F.F. Jones here in just a second. There he is, the old bugger. Now, again, if this man had nothing to do with this, what's the reality? Well, yes, he was a stern dad. Yes, his son was, kind of weak and kind of lackadaisical and was never a real go-getter. I mean, I can't imagine what that family went through. Here he is, very stern and in charge and very organized. He often kept his workers very late days, but he was going to succeed in business. One of the people who worked for him was Joe Moore. He worked for him for 9 years. Joe said he wanted more money. They had a little spat about that. And then all of a sudden, John Deere came to Joe Moore and said, you know what, if you open your own hardware store, we're going to give you, we're not happy with the way F.F. Jones is dealing with our products. And we're fixing to really start, booming here. We'll give you the franchise exclusively. So Joe did. At the same time, Joe Moore is, doing a little other kind of shenanigans on the side. Albert Jones had a wife named Donna, and here she is. That's Donna. Albert got a catch, didn't he? Wonder if the money had anything to do with it. Just saying, I'm sure it was just pure love, but Well, Donna was caught multiple times by the telephone girls, or whatever they called them, the cable girls, the ones that plugged and unplugged when you called somebody. And they would call Donna and say, "Can we come over?" She goes, "Yeah, he's not here. Come on over." Well, one of her frequent visitors was Joe Moore. And that was, of course, Sarah Moore's husband, one of the victims, and the dad in the house. So a lot of people thought that F.F. Jones hired somebody to kill him because he was, banging his daughter-in-law, and he took the John Deere franchise from him and had the unmitigated gall to open a hardware store right across the street from him. They used to walk to the other side of the street when they saw the other one coming. They avoided each other, and it was a little crazy. But to kill an entire family, 6 children, over something like that, I talked to Ed extensively about that, and he says he could prove without a doubt that F.F. Jones had nothing to do with it, you know. And he's got plenty of documents and letters and everything else on F.F. Jones. It's a nice theory, but it would have been so much easier just to kill Joe in the next town over at a convention that he was always going to. Could have been walking down an alley and just bopped him on the head, and that'd have been it. Why go through all this? Didn't make sense. And here's the thing. The other murders, the other axe murders that were going on in other counties, in other states, along that train track, whatever, didn't have all the details in the paper. They didn't have all the finite details. How in the world? Yeah, feuds can be deadly. I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't be. It just doesn't seem to be right. Whoever they hired would have had to go in there and know not just the fact that the guy pinned stuff over the windows, but how he pinned it. Everybody's got like a distinctive way of doing something. You put the pin in and you come back out this way, or you go down, you just stick it in and come down, or just, but to do it that way all the time, in Iowa, in Indiana, in Kansas, what are the chances? What are the chances? Do you see what I mean? Little things like that. And not all of them have that detail, but the ones that do, that makes you wonder, right? To take the glass, what do you call it, the chimney, or whatever you call the glass that goes on the oil lamp, off, and to put it under a dresser or under a bed, and the way he left the lamps, the amount of the wick that was showing, all these little details, right? The fact that almost everything was locked or shut tight. Now, Ed did say in this case, 2 windows were unlocked, but they were shut tight. And the only thing that was missing out of the house was the house key. Joe's gold watch fob, his gold watch, there was money, there was all kinds of, he didn't take anything. And when Ed and I talked about it, and I talked a little bit about it, when we were doing the Man on the Train episode that Steve and I did, we talked about those kind of details and how much we had to go through to get details like that just out of existing newspapers. Keep in mind, how many documents are destroyed? How many people 100 years ago, these small towns, did they flood? Did the documents burn? Were they just thrown away or destroyed or lost? So we'll never know. But to me, that just seems a little odd that some guy hired out of nowhere would come in and know how to do all that stuff to match it to the other ones, unless he did the other ones too. That's not out of the question. It's something to think about. Now, when you're dealing with all that, and you've got that person, like Ed going in there all the time. He lives in Iowa, was 100 miles away from Villisca. He started out in 1956, and he's still going, still going. And to just go ahead and rent this house and walk in there and say, okay, well, we've heard that people got killed here. We heard that they're still looking for a killer. We think that this happened. There were people in the chat sounding out things when we were going, I think it was episode 2 and 3, that were throwing out details that they had heard and believed. Things found in the trees, a bloody knife found down the street, their heads were completely chopped off, just all these details, and just thinking that it's real. Doesn't exist. Made up. And even in the movie, you'll see one gentleman describing the fact that he believes that Ina was trying to run and escape. Ed talked to the lady who washed the bodies. There was no cuts on her arm. That girl did not get up and run around the house. There's just no evidence for that. If it happened, if she did get up and run around the house, there would have been some other things there. There are paranormal investigators that say they've gone and found bloody handprints from the little girl on the wall. Really? After 111 years? How many times that place been painted? Really? Wallpapered, painted, walls knocked out, put back. The furniture in there is not the original furniture. The stove isn't original. So think about these things if you're going in to investigate what is fact and what is fiction and what's completely just made up bullshit. Because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. And I think that the people, the victims, the moms, and the kids deserve the respect and the honor to at least tell the facts. So there's that. Now, the other one, of course, we know some of the other. Here's one. Now, I have the wrong name on this one. I think I did. I put Mueller. That's not Mueller. This is Moore. And as you see here, Missouri convict, right? And he was charged for 25 axe murders. Well, he didn't do this one because they have all kinds of documentation that says he was in a completely different state working. That was Blackie Mansfield, but this guy, Ed said no. It wasn't him. Mueller, he's not sure of. He think that's a viable theory, the serial killer one. But he's really leaning towards this little son of a gun right here. Let me see if I can find him. It's so hard to see this stuff the way I have it set up. I apologize. All right, it's Kelly. Here's the house, guys. Let me show you right here. It's about what the house looked like back then. That's about what it looked like. And this is Churchill. He was a photographer that was right there near the town. And there's Ed with the axe. And this is, of course, the house. And this is about what the streets look like right up here. And this is Presbyterian Church where they had the children's play that they were all leaving from. And it was going on, I guess, about 9:30, something like that. They all walked home. And there's a lady in the movie. Hang on one second here. I've got all this written down, but I don't have my lights, so I can't see the numbers on them. Give me 1 second here. All right. Like I said, we spare no expense here at the Journey Through the Gate to try to get you the best entertainment and the best. Sorry, guys. Do the best I can. Here he goes. This is Kelly. Excuse me. There he is. Now, this guy is batshit crazy. Ain't no doubt about it. He was put in an insane asylum multiple times. Gosh, I want to say 3 or 4 times in his life, maybe more. He was in town. He was traveling preacher. This is him up here shown with his wife. He's about 5'2" or 3, a slight little build. And a lot of people said he couldn't have done it because he was such a small character. You could throw that out. I believe that he could have. Of course, he's insane. they'll very flippantly say, he gave a confession. Well, Dr. Epperly went through the whole confession that he gave. He said how he did it, slay utterly. The Lord spoke to him, and there was the axe. He saw the light around the axe go in and slay utterly, which is again not what that means, but that's how he took it, and that's what he said. Um, Ed and I talked about it on the phone, and he said that he's leaning a lot toward Kelly, and he followed him all the way through his life, and right to the end, and went and spoke to a couple people that knew him at the very end, and he says he thinks it's highly possible, but the reason he thinks it couldn't have been the serial killer, he's like this, because he thinks he said to me, the chances of two crazy people being in that vicinity at the same time is quite a coincidence. And I said, Ed, I'm going to tell you right now, I think it was two of them. I think he was there. But I think it was the serial killer too. Because I don't think this little son of a gun had it together enough to pull off a methodical thing like that. I just don't. Not physically, but the methodical. Now, if you're that kind of insane and you just snap and you go into a trance of whatever your own making, could you pull something like that off? Sure. But it just sounds like this little character was so erratic, and it seems like out of sheer survival, he became what he needed to be at the moment. And people could see him change back and forth. Like one minute he was like that preacher that, oh yes, young one, you're going to go here, and the Lord loves you and all that, and give this big old sermon, because that's what he was taught as a kid, and how to make money, just like a snake oil salesman, whatever. But he did a lot of pacing. Any house he stayed in, because it was, you'd quarter them overnight, and you'd give them the meal, and then they'd go and preach the next day, and then it was somebody else's turn, much like they did with school teachers back in the day. Everybody said that he creeped them out. Mothers would sit on the stairs or lock the door and, go to sleep against it because they didn't trust him being in the house. Don't let him come back here. He was caught peeping in windows more than once. He was definitely a peeper. He walked around at night seeing who he could see getting undressed in a window or whatever. Definitely a deviant pervert, but he couldn't do anything about it because he was completely impotent. There's his wife. She said so. He was also caught putting out ads for stenographers, and he got caught, putting, I think it was, wasn't porn. They didn't use the word pornographic, using the postal service, as a pervert, trying to get women to come work for him, but you have to type in the nude kind of thing. So he got busted for that. He would be in a boarding house and invite young girls up to be an apprentice or whatever for whatever his art or writing was. He was an author, supposedly, to help him write sermons and help him write a book. And he would try to get them to take their clothes off so he could have inspiration, he said. What a chance to be taken to do something like that. Of course, he couldn't at the time get anybody to do it. And, a couple people turned him in, and he'd skip town and go to the next one. So I'm not saying he wasn't a Looney Tune. I'm saying I don't think he did it, but I think he was involved. Now, this is where I'm going with this. And Ed and I talked about this for a while, and he's like, you must have read the book, and got an idea. And I said, well, to tell you the truth, Ed, I haven't been able to get it my hands on. And I said, I watched the movie and I watched every interview you ever did, but I can't tell you I read the book if I didn't, because I didn't get it yet. And I said, when I do, I'll absolutely, let you know. And he laughed and he says, well, that's the kind of the conclusion he's kind of come to as well. But he could never talk to anybody in town, like either, lawyers or historians that were still on the case, or, whatever, to get them to agree that two crazy people could be in town at once. So when we finish this, I'm going to tell you what I think and you tell me what you think. But there's your thing. There's your guys. And I put out a little poll. Let me see if I can get this for you without shutting down. On our community page on bear with me as I pull this up. If I can get this picture real quick. I put out a little poll. Let's see if I can get this picture. It's loading. Here we go. Let's see if I can get this to load. Share it with you guys. How do I do it? Okay. Bear with me. Here we go. So how y'all doing? Y'all doing good? Nothing like a little axe murder after Mother's Day, right? Crazy Cisco. Tell you what, a lot of people, like I said, didn't understand why I would do something like this with the kids and all that. But the reason I'm doing it is because it's my job to try to show you guys as much as I've tried to learn in the paranormal. And these two cases, look at there. There's your community poll. Now, I'm going to send this. If you hadn't voted in the poll, please go to our YouTube page. Go to the community button and go ahead and vote on this. Tell me what you think. Because when I last spoke to Ed, he said, I think everybody's leaning towards serial killer. That seems to be the number one thought. Well, look at that poll. You've got 28% think Lynn Kelly did it. Only 11% think F.F. Jones. 17% said an unknown serial killer. Unnamed, because we're not sure about the Mueller. And then down here with the little kitty, I honestly just don't know. 44%.
I went with the cat. I told you that.
Did you go with the kitty? I mean, it's rough. I mean,
it's just so much in so many different directions, and it all sounds right. And then you think one's right, and then no, this is right, and that's right, and then you just I ended up. I mean, the whole thing was fascinating and enlightening, but I had so many more questions than answers when it was over.
Right. So what do you do with that? So at this point, you think, okay, there's nothing we can do about it. Obviously, after 111 years, just like with Lizzie, everybody's gone now. So what are we left with? We're left with this house, and why in the world would somebody take this house and make it a museum? Well, money, interest. I think sometimes maybe we could honestly talk ourselves into, like, if I don't save it, history will be lost. And others would say, why would you ever want to save such a horrible place?
Some places with the dust. The neighbors burned Ed Gein's house to the ground because they didn't want it to become a museum or a tourist attraction. And I get that.
I do too. A lot of the town is absolutely against this, whether it brings in people or not. I mean, if you're coming in, you're, staying there, you're staying in a hotel, you're eating at the restaurants, you're definitely helping the town out for sure, the tourism. But the people in that town don't want to be known for just that. Yeah. Same. I feel the same way. So then why would we do this? Well, you got the gist of it. And I've told you about tulpas, and I've told you how energies can be created. Well, there's another way energies can be created. With all that negativity in there, any land, any rock, any building, any place is going to hold an energy. Now imagine the energy in that house after something that devastating has happened. We don't know what happened before. It could have been massacres. Who knows? Whether it was cursed land. Again, I don't know. Nothing like that has happened around there. Again, I just think it was just one of those random things where it happened to be that house. Yes, I do, Emmy, and I have. Yes, and I have had a couple people, which is, I'm putting their stuff together in my follow-up on this, and it goes right along with what Amy says, because the whole thing is about the sorting of it. How do you sort through? It's like a ball of, different colored yarns, and some of them are so close together that it really takes a while to sort it. You can't just sort it by color because it's so close. You have to sort it by the fiber and what it consists of, and the different way it's woven or spun. I mean, I know that sounds like a funny way of describing a paranormal case, but that's kind of what it's like. It's all these different layers, and to be able to filter this through, somebody with, a blinky cat toy and a a tape player is not going to be able to sort this. You're just going to come through and say, yes, something touched the cat ball and it lit up, and yes, something,
You're just
you
going to
know,
frustrate yourself and possibly piss off whatever's there.
and maybe take something home. Because
Yeah.
if you're infirmed or you're of the right energy, you have cracks in your windshield. Are you bringing that home to your kids? What's next? Your 2-year-old's flying around the kitchen, you know? And again, Steve and I have been on many of a phone call with people, just that very thing. One lady was actually in a hospice, on IVs before they called somebody, and they said, remember that serial killer you were talking to, and you went to where he buried all the bodies? Well, that's who came home with you, because he's still killing. He's killing in death. He's killing, your girlfriend, and y'all called it. Do you see what I mean? It's not something to play with. So, and God bless these people should be at rest at this point. So let's see what Amy has to say. Now, the way I had to do this, of course, I can't play dead files on here. I'll get copyrighted, thrown right off. So I grabbed a couple of sound bites and I put it with some pictures, but I think you're going to get the gist, because I'm going to let her tell you a little bit, and then I'll fill in with what she told me, as long as it wasn't in confidence or something she wouldn't want me to say, because I would never want to do that. She's a lovely person that gives of herself. Yes, she's got a great show, but don't blame her if it's cut in a certain way, because that's editing and producing and things like that. This woman gives her all to really help some people. And I think one of the hardest things for her is when she does sort a case out and she tells people, look, you got to get out of here. You can't stay here. Or yes, you can. So do you remember in the beginning, if you ever watched Dead Files, where she used to come in and she goes, okay, I want you to take this black salt. I want you to do this. Or I want you to take, the holy water. I want you to do the sage. I want you to do whatever it was. She said they don't let her do that anymore. You notice that? She did it for the first couple seasons and it stopped. And then she's like, okay, well, I want you to get like a chaos magician, and I want you to get a white witch, and I want you to get a male trance medium in here. And there's a reason she says that, because of the energies you're dealing with, the energy you need to battle that. She's very good at that, at saying, those things. I think here in the last seasons, they've probably backed her off a little bit about the really nutty stuff. It was like, well, there's a soul eater in the basement. Yeah, let's not talk about that. They didn't go over last time, so don't even mention that. So you're not getting the full thing, but you're getting parts of it. Does that make sense? What is this? Yeah, I did a cold case today. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So let's see what Amy's got to say. Steve, you ready? You got anything you want to say up to this point? Steven? Is he frozen? Maybe he's frozen. Maybe he'll come back. It looks like he's frozen, or he's... Did you get zapped? Is he paranormally zapped? Are we all frozen? All right. Well, let's play this and see what's up. We're still good. Let me check. Let me wave and see if we're still here. Yeah, we're good. I think it's just Steve. He'll go out and come back in. So here we go. Let's see what she's got to tell you here.
This guy's angry and jealous. He was saying, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. There's a lot of control here. She does refer to her husband as a traitor. She wanted out bad. She just went in there and got stabbed, died.
Okay, we'll stop it right there. Did you hear what she said? It's pretty crazy, right? I want you to hear that part again. Listen to what she says here.
This guy's angry and jealous. He was saying, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. There's a lot of control here. She does refer to her husband as a traitor.
Let me stop it there. Tell me what she means. When you put this on the show and Amy's walking and she's saying these things, are you forcing them into a category, or are you just accepting what she's saying and putting it over here for later reference? Because the way she said that, you would assume that she's talking about Joe Moore, right? Of course you'd think that, because we always go back 111 years. Let me get Steve back in here. Did you get thee thawed?
I wasn't asleep. I was frozen. Yeah.
It's okay, sweetie. Good to have you back. So what I was saying, did you hear what Amy said here? If not, I'll play it again. All right, let me play it again for you because I want you to hear what she says.
This guy's angry and jealous. He was saying it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. There's a lot of control here. She does refer to her husband as a traitor.
Okay, that part right there. Are we just going to assume that she's talking about Joe? This is 111 years. Nobody else has lived in that house. Nobody's ever been on that property. She could be picking up energy. She didn't say a word. Okay, remember this stuff is edited. She didn't say a word about, I'm picking up the energy of Joe Moore and he is saying, it's not me, it's not me. She says she's got a guy who's saying, it's not me, it's not me. I didn't do it. Okay, who is that? We can't just jump to conclusions. Now, when she flips over and she starts talking about this woman, I know she believes she's talking about Sarah. She never uses a name. But did Sarah know that Joe was a traitor? Because, of course, he's sleeping with Donna and God knows who else or whatever. I don't know. Is that something Sarah knew at the time? Or is Sarah still in the house and hearing everybody else tell her that? What do they know? What is she able to pick up? Think about it. These are all things that's good to think about. What do you think there, Steve? I mean, 111 years, many people have been in that house. She could be picking up anybody.
A lot of energy, a lot of impressions there. And plus, you don't know any of those people, what they were going through or what their intent was when they were there. People may have left stuff there intentionally. They may have caused stuff there unintentionally. It's just, you can't say. It'd be like trying to pick a pea out of a pot of stew. There's just so much there already.
Yeah. That's 100%. And that's why I'm letting you know this was like one of the first things she was saying as they're presenting the show. And I'm thinking, okay, the way they cut that, they're making it sound like she's talking about Joe and Sarah, but we don't know that. And the only reason I'm saying I believe she's talking about Sarah when she says her husband was a traitor or whatever, because she talks about it later and she did mention it when I spoke to her. So but without that knowledge, you're just assuming. You can't do that in the paranormal. You can't do it in true crime. You see where I'm coming from? Okay, let's continue.
She wanted out bad. She just went in there and got stabbed, died.
Okay, now she said she wanted out bad. She walked in that room, got stabbed, and died. That's not any of the Moores. That's not any of the Moores. Now she's talking about somebody else. Because Sarah didn't go in a room and get stabbed and die. So who is she talking about? What energies are in that home? I don't know of any other murders that happened in that home since then. I know Dr. Epperly would have told me that. So is this just an energy that got drawn to the house and the property? You see where I'm coming from? Wild, isn't it? Right, Steve? That's crazy.
Hey, Jesse, I understand that you're a friend of John's.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and how long do you know?
The man here in the hoodie is John. He's standing in front of the Moore barn. This is the barn. He is the one that lives in the Peckham house next door and does the historical tours. He is the gentleman that wound up calling Dead Files because he was having a problem in the Peckham house. And he's the one that moved his family from sleeping upstairs to sleeping downstairs. That's how bad it was. He's the one that is getting haunted by the old lady that's really angry, that screams, but he can't hear anything coming out of her. He can't hear her, but he can tell she's screaming. And was pretty scared. He's pretty shook by it. But that's John that they're talking about.
We've known each other for a couple of years now.
Okay, you guys consider yourself close?
Absolutely.
Okay, now he said you had an experience here. What happened?
We actually had the entrance door to the kitchen and the dining room shut and locked. And that door would fly open on its own. And when the door would open up, you'd hear boots running through the house. It was terrifying, absolutely terrifying.
There's a male involved. Like, he's a big guy. Supposedly there was some guy who was like bopping around the town. People didn't know who he was, and so they suspected him of the crime.
I'll stop you right there. Ed Epperly told me about this. He had not seen, actually, he's in this, and he didn't, watch it. And if he did, he said he caught parts of it, but the way it started out, he could see what they were doing. They were trying to lean toward a narrative. And again, this isn't Amy, and it's not Steve. This is the way it's edited and produced. So, of course, they're going to, if it bleeds, it leads. If it's scary, they're going to put it there, and she's going to make faces and stuff like that. But Ed told me that there were several people seen walking around. There was always transients. Of course, there was more people in town. It wasn't a big deal at the Presbyterian church, but there was more people moving around. It was a Sunday afternoon. And again, the trains that come through, many people walking back and forth. But there was one or two guys. At one time, he was seen with another guy just walking. Doesn't mean a thing. They could have been just walking from a job or to a job or from the train, whatever. But he was a stranger in town, and he was a tall, big man. They're not talking about Kelly. Okay? And that's in the book. And Ed has talked about that many a time, where that's why he said they didn't see anybody walking around that morning, because they would have been seen. They would have been noticed. And this guy was noticed, but he wasn't seen after the murder. He was gone. I wonder why. It's possible. Think about that.
Have you experienced anything else?
Yes. Disembodied voices, shadow figures, large entities. For example, I saw a large shadow-like entity, probably about 7 foot tall, rush out at me from the upstairs attic. And when he got to my face, he let out this sound, and it was like a hiss and a growl kind of combined.
Okay.
And that's probably the most fear I've ever felt in my entire life.
Okay, now this is John's friend talking. And he said he had over 7 foot tall, dark entity type shadow person rushed towards him. And when it got real close to him, it did a growl and a hiss. Now you're going to hear from Amy later that one of the girls like to get attention, and she'll do growling, or she'll like boo. And she messes with people that come in there. Not the same thing. They're going to make it sound like it's the same thing, like they wrapped all that up. The entity in the attic is a creation of the energy of all the talk, all of the negative stuff, all of the horror that went on in that house, and then people feeding it. This is something that was never human. The same thing, you remember, Steve, is in where? The Lizzie Borden house.
Yep, exactly. It's almost the same circumstances, but not. It's the same, but different.
Yep. So that's not the serial killer's ghost. That's not it's just this thing that over time almost creates a life of its own, something that's never been alive before. If you're going to be in the paranormal, you have to know that these things exist. So it's not a tulpa. It is what some ghost hunters, and I say that because, what's his name from the original Ghost Hunters? I can't remember his name now. But he calls it a poltergeist, which is something he says is created out of energy, never was living, and can create its own thing. Left alone unfed would dissipate over time, but fed could actually almost become like it is alive and its own thing. It's crazy, but it's true. Nuts, right, Steve? It's a crazy subject, but it's true.
Absolutely. No sense makes sense.
He's
Right.
just evil. A very bad person.
This is something different.
He's not afraid. I don't know what's going on with him. Like, if he's like in shock or like, I don't know. I'm really confused. He thinks he needs to accomplish what he set out to do, which is to kill somebody successfully.
Rural Iowa, heading over to the infamous Villisca.
One thing she said there, he wasn't afraid. To me, there's a couple other things, and again, conversation I had with methodical was a word she used. That's the same word I used, methodical. You're not even thinking, you're not afraid, you're just stealth. You're just a machine. Boom, 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 boom. Lynn Kelly was nothing but a quivering mass of jelly. He would do absolutely anything to survive the next 5 minutes, including sexual acts on prisoners. 1 minute he's that, 1 minute he's something else, 1 minute he's, giving lollipops to little girls and patting them on the head and telling them Jesus loves them. And the next minute he's trying to ask them to take their clothes off. This guy is an absolute maniac menace of just quivering ball of nerves. He's not a methodical serial killer, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Think about it. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, that's a good opinion to have. I totally agree. And it makes sense. The whole paradigm has shifted there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's like, and again, we don't know. These are just theories and guesses, and and trying to take what we kind of know now and what's possible over these decades in the paranormal to learn that, my gosh, it's a much bigger onion than we ever thought, right, Steve? I mean, there's so many layers and so many possibilities, but she continually picked up, she got different energies on these guys. And at one point in time, she's going to tell you that she's picking up on a conspiracy of 4 planning this murder. But again, when I spoke to her, she was saying there were so many layers in there of lies that were told and retold. And then in there, people are talking about it. And as on the tours are talking about it, the people that go in there are talking about it, the town is talking about it for 100 years. It's created a manifestation, almost a movie, which is different than a tulpa because it's not an actual entity that's walking around. It's more like an energy that plays a movie because people have talked about it so much. Does that make sense? The way I describe that, Steve?
And again,
it's almost
no sense makes sense. It's like a non-descriptive description, but it makes perfect sense. Yet none at all. It's a quandary or an enigma, a riddle.
But it takes somebody with abilities like hers and other people like they're talking about in chat, like remote viewers. And, I think we had a similar thing with the McDonald case where it was so confusing for some remote viewers to go in there. They were picking up the energy of this one, the girl with the big hat and all that. But so many people had talked about it that it created different scenarios in the same hour, in the same time frame. It's crazy. And you have to use all your filters to sort that. And sometimes it takes more than one person to go in there and go, what about this? What are you feeling this? Well, this doesn't feel like it has any life to it or ever had life to it. That's one big thing with physical mediums. They can go in and go, okay, well, this looks alive, but it's never been. And that's how you sort that. And she's literally going in there and peeling back these layers and looking at each little thing. You just don't have a lot of time in 40 minutes.
Separating the signal from the noise, the wheat from the chaff.
A good way of putting it there, Steve. Yeah, it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Axe murder house. Now, here's what Amy and I both know going into this case. June 9th, 1912. 6 members of the Moore family and 2 young girls who will be spending the night with them as house guests walk back from the church along a country road. Around 9:30 p.m., they arrive home. The following morning, they will all be found dead.
older woman from outside. She's trying to talk to a person here.
Okay.
But she's throwing a fit. Like, she is going crazy.
It remains one of the more spectacular cases in Iowa history.
Like I said, Ed was in this episode. Isn't that wonderful? I just love him.
Have you talked to him since
There were
the
8
other
people.
shows?
Couple emails back and forth. Yeah, I'm thinking about maybe doing a book on Donna and Lynn Kelly. Kind of like the devil and the soiled dove, something like that. You know, like kind of a parallel of both what they went through and later on. And was there anything in there that ever hinted towards one thing or the other? It's an
I could
idea.
see you drawing a parallel between this and like the Lincoln stuff that we went through.
Uh-huh.
There was
Absolutely.
so much to sort out in that one. And was it
Yeah.
Booth? Was he in the barn? Was he in the theater? Was it Lincoln's ghost? Was it Booth's ghost? Was
Mhm.
Booth's ghost?
And once you
Which-
sort it, it's so fascinating. It's not as cut and dry as people are making it, you know?
Not
Like
at
you
all.
just said, that's perfect, Steve, to bring that up, is where everybody's just assuming this light in the balcony is Lincoln. I'm going, no, that's Booth. And I can tell by the energy of it. You see what I mean? And that's what of course Amy does. Much better than I ever could. But here we go. Here's Ed talking about it. I wish you could see him because it was about 20 years ago, and he's just man, this is the guy to go to right here.
Killed,
Okay.
and they called for the town marshal. So he looks around the room, and the killer has taken a woman's black skirt out of a dresser and draped it over the mirror. The axe is leaning against the
So,
south
I'll be right back.
wall, and it's got blood and hair on it. They had all been killed with the back of the axe. Mrs. Moore, she was the only one struck with the blade of the axe.
Interesting.
These people, from the day that this happened, have never had any kind of peace. Not only are they reliving what happened to them constantly, they're also seeing other people coming and going, and it's made to be a sideshow, and it needs to stop.
We don't want it to be disrespectful.
This doesn't feel right. One of these men was really cool with doing this, torturing.
Did you catch it? Did you see it? Hats off to Nuke's top 5. Did you see it? You decide. Did you hear what she said? One of these men. Now I'll tell you what I think after that. Told you a little bit in the beginning. Told Ed on the phone a couple times. One of these men was really cool with doing this.
He's a little guy, probably my height, but really thin, pale. His face is weird. He's a little crazy dude. She feels responsible because she either let someone in or let them stay. But I hear from someone else that it's actually her husband's fault.
Now, how wild is that? Did you see the picture? Did you see the picture? Look. Let me see if I can get it back. That's the picture. You know how she says, Amy, is that what you saw? Okay, wait a minute, 1 second. Right there. The weird part about this is I didn't get to hear how she was describing the picture to the artist, and I don't get this baseball cap looking thing. You see what I'm saying? Because they didn't have those back in the day. And maybe that's not what it is, but I looked at it from every angle. I watched the show and, tried to get it as best as I could, trying to describe this. It could be Kelly. She said it looked like Kelly once she saw Kelly's picture after the fact, at the end in the reveal. But the hat's messing with me because he didn't wear that kind of hat, for sure. He had one hat, all through that time. But she's describing Kelly. But you don't know where she talked to Kelly. She talked to Kelly's essence. She didn't even say it was a ghost. She talked to his essence, which again could be he's not really a ghost there. It's just what's left of him because of the imprint and stuff. In the barn, he would not go and leave the barn. He wouldn't go in the house. And she was kind of funny the way she said it. I think there's a reason for that. But I'll let her keep going. Don't jump to conclusions yet. Just listen.
Crazy dude. She feels responsible because she either let someone in or let them stay. But I hear from someone else that it's actually her husband's fault.
Okay, now she said, and I agree, Cathedra, that's absolutely possible. She's putting it here that energy perhaps could be a free occurring excess, expelled, or residual energy that builds or needs to build to form completely to exist as we know it, and hitchhiked another energy. That's absolutely possible too. Okay, but you also have to think of, what do we know about Booth? Do I think that Booth continually haunts the gift shop at the Ford's Theater? No. I think he goes wherever he's being talked about, just like our loved ones do. And we talk about them, boom, they're here. You see what I mean? And they're going to come into that negative energy and that sorrow, and they're going to feed on it, and they're going to feed about how you're talking about him. And like, yeah, I did that. I mean, he's still in his world, Booth, I did a great thing. And he's not going to cross over because he wants to hear about it. We're still talking about it. And that's why he shows up. And I mean, if you went to the tobacco barn where he was shot, if it was him, he isn't there anymore. But I bet you if you went to that place and talked about him, you could probably pick up that he was there because he's just wandering around going wherever this energy takes him. He's not, as you would think of a ghost. A lot of us think about ghosts that, like are stuck in the wishing well until they're released or whatever, or they're trapped in their own cage and they stay in a closet or they stay in the house where they were. Not all ghosts do that. Some of these ghosts, especially after 100 years, learn a lot of tricks and what they can do and what they're good at and how to go get the energy. And as narcissistic as Booth was, of course he's going to click into that. So why wouldn't it be true here? If everybody's talking about Kelly, the whole town's talking about Kelly, been talking about Kelly, why wouldn't he be there? Why is he only in the barn and not walking the ground? She said within this show and others that she's talked about, she doesn't do very many interviews because she thinks she's boring. She's like, I really don't have anything to talk about. I'd love to get her on, but she absolutely hates it. She hates doing interviews. She'd rather just talk to you. But I'd love to know a little bit more what she got from him in that barn, because the way she's describing it, again, to me, and this is just a guess at this point, okay, that it's not him as a ghost, it's his essence. And even his essence would not leave that barn and go into that house or walk the grounds. You got to think about why. Why would that happen?
Now, was she one of the murder victims?
Yes.
She was?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, there's only one woman that was murdered in this house. This is Sarah Moore. Does that look like who you might have seen?
Yes. Oh, yes.
She lived here with her husband and 4 kids. It was Herman, who was 11. It was Catherine, who was 10. And then they had 2 other kids, Boyd and Paul, 7 and 5. Now, you mentioned the woman you saw was angry.
Yes.
It's interesting because Sarah Moore was the only one that was hit with the sharp end of the axe. The rest of them were hit with the back end of the axe.
I honestly don't know where Steve's going with that one. And I mean, Deshave or whatever his name is. Not our Steve Stockton. So she's angry. She's more angry because she was the only one hit with the sharp end of the axe, or she's not angry because somebody killed all her kids and her. That was just one sentence. I went, huh? I don't get that statement. Do you guys? Did you get anything from that? Like, why would he? I know it's just something he said and didn't really mean anything by it, but maybe as a cop and a Marine, which he is, he's thinking she's more angry because there was more violence taken out on her, probably punishing her for something she didn't do, being the scapegoat for somebody's anger, being punished for somebody else's crime. You see where I'm coming from there? But the way he said it was she was the only one killed with the sharp end of the axe. So you kind of got to think of, how does a Marine think? How does a police officer think? How does a serial killer think? That's a lot of imagining, but that's my best guess at why he said that. What do you think? You know, you might come up with something different. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and you know, but I think there may have been more behind that. Again, these shows don't give you enough time to sit there and let somebody complete a thought. They cut it and chop it up. He might have had a complete thought and they just chopped it up. No pun intended. Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to say it like that. But they cut it all up to where it sells more, gets more viewers. You know what I mean?
Really?
So, John, how do you feel knowing that one of the murder victims is actually here in the house and she's pissed?
Definitely sad. You know, nobody wants anybody stuck.
Bedroom, there.
Yet they continue these tours like I want to say every hour on the hour, but it's not that popular. So, I mean, at least every day. I mean, enough to employ this man, and he can, you know, support a family and live in the house next door and give these tours. Now, when you see this man, and again, I don't know him from Adam. I have seen him on other interviews, and he tries really hard to not, you know, lean too much now towards the paranormal and stuff, because the guy got basically his ass handed to him as far as paranormal stuff. She's going over there and screaming at him, "You gotta stop this. You're feeding this, you know, this evil. You know, my kids are suffering. We're reliving this over and over. Can you please stop making this a sideshow?" You know? But there you go.
There's two girls, but there was one girl specifically who enjoys interacting with the living. She tries to get attention. She tries to talk to people, and she likes to growl. House, and it was of Sarah going crazy and yelling. These people from...
Okay, this picture here is the one she had drawn of Sarah. This is supposedly Sarah. Really frantic and going over and bothering his family while they're sleeping. Again, like I mentioned, they moved everybody. It seemed to be better downstairs, so they moved everybody from upstairs down. I don't know why people do that. If she can move from the house that she was killed in to this house over here, what's the difference of what floor you're on? I don't get it. Why don't just understand that you're upsetting this woman? This is a mother who had all her kids killed. Lord knows if she knew her husband was cheating on her, but, you know, small town, what do you think? You know, and then you got the embarrassment of the whole thing, and she's in church, and, you know, can you imagine? Again, the times or whatever, I don't care what you say. You know, sometimes, I mean, if you want to really hear a case, I'll tell you about LBJ and his wife, you know, where she would just sit there, "Oh, that's just Lyndon," you know, practically screwing the secretary right next to her in the car as he's driving, practically. And she's just Lady Bird Johnson, just, "Oh, well, that's just Lyndon. That's just his way." What? See what I'm saying? Oh, she knows now, Lynn, that's for sure. But the thing is did she know then? You know what I mean? Lord knows what this woman went through and how she upheld. And I don't even know. She might have been, you know, not a great lady. Who knows? That's not the point. The point is she's killed, and her whole family is bludgeoned to death. So I don't get it. You know, we're going to go from upstairs to downstairs, and that's going to solve everything. I don't know. Some people.
The day that this happened, have never had any kind of peace. Not only Are they reliving what happened to them constantly? They're also seeing other people coming and going, and it's made to be a sideshow, and it needs to stop. Because if this continues to stay a tourist attraction, I don't think they're going to find any peace.
I did speak with the owner, Martha, and I can tell you after speaking with her that she is not going to change the way things are done here.
Now, this is Darwin Lynn. He has since passed. The lady they're talking about is Martha. I believe that was his wife. So, I'll tell you a little bit about that. Darwin owned, he was a farmer in Iowa. Ed speaks, nothing bad to say one way or another. Met him and talked to him. This was just a guy who had a little museum trying to keep history going in Villisca. Now, they don't have a very big historical society, so much so that when Ed Epperly acquired the axe over time, he didn't want to keep it. They just didn't have any place in Villisca that had the staff or the security to hold such a thing, because you've got these very macabre people that would love to get a hold of such a thing. You see what I'm saying? And that's, if you ask Ed why he kept, that's why, because he didn't want it to get in the wrong hands, and he had two things of evidence that's left from this murder: the axe and the house. That's it. And the memory and the lies. That's what you got. And he said that after all the time that they went through, he wanted to make sure that that was put in the right hands. So it's not in Villisca. It's in the larger museum. He says he doesn't know if they have it on display right now, but where it could be under security. So this man had a little museum going, and he was very into history. And this house was going to be demolished. They were going to tear it down. Nobody really wanted to stay. Like I said, there was a couple families over the years that stayed. One stayed quite a long time. I think it was like 20 years. And, they never reported anything happening there. Maybe some creaks and groans and things like that. And there's a couple of other little things that happened too. Apparently, the way the house is set up, that if you open the downstairs door, because of the vents, the closet doors will open. So a lot of times in the paranormal investigators and on their videos and stuff, they'll say, the closet door opened or whatever. And that happens all the time in there with the drafts, and they've proved it hands down. I can't tell you that every time that happens is because of that, but that's something you need to take into consideration. Little things like that, and I don't want to use the word debunking, but that's, you have to do it. I mean, or else what's the evidence, Absolute vodka will. So Gavin decided to save the house. He had the money and he was going to save the house. He was going to make it, he said, I think rather than to just let history be destroyed this way, it should be remembered. And he said that he wanted to get this house and set it back to the way it was in 1912 as a historian. He then, you can see him on a couple of news, like Iowa News and things like that, and a couple other things called roadside attractions and stuff like that, where once he opened the house, that's when, right around the time that the paranormal started getting its boost, when Ghost Hunters and what was that other one, Most Haunted, and all these different ones are really starting to pick up. And he had it more like an attraction to where you could just go through on like Halloween and stuff like that. The townspeople, Renice, there was a couple of people that went in there. Ed can name them. And he described it in episode 3 in the Q&A when we were asking, when the questions were in there. He actually described how they did it, how they put everything in the mattresses and rolled them up and used the wire that they used to wire off instead of having crime scene tape. It was actually more like probably baling wire, something that they would have around a farm. It wasn't barbed wire. You'll hear barbed wire. It wasn't. It was just probably baling wire or something. And they wrapped the mattresses up, threw them out the window, and one of the mattresses left a blood streak, and they had to paint the whole house and everything just so the town didn't have to look at that. It was a horrible thing. He actually sat down and had a long conversation with the woman who volunteered to wash the bodies out of love. Can you imagine the strong-willed human being that went in there and did that and washed the bodies and prepared them? The mortician couldn't even do it. She did it. She did them all. And he spoke to her. So he knows the shape of everything that was in there and the people. So firsthand. But so Gavin, not Gavin. What was his name again? Boy, I said it wrong. Hold on. I keep wanting to call this guy Gavin. It's a weird first name. I don't want to get it wrong. Darwin Lynn. And nice man. And he was kind of surprised by it. You see what I mean? Like, well, this just seems to be like a new phenomenon where these people want to come through and it's helping me pay for things. So, charge them a dollar to go in and walk around in the house and come out the other side, come kind of like a Halloween, little extra event. And it started to grow. He's like, hey, little money in this. So he was able to use that money to buy more things for the house that were more period, like the stove and things like that. Again, nothing in the house is original furniture. All that furniture was divvied up with the family, and it was a huge family. I think Joe had like 11 or 14 siblings or something along those lines. And nothing in that house is original. It's just the house, and the house has been redone, and he's the one that started to get it back the way it was, put the porch back on and all these different things. Really put a lot of money into it, but it was really done almost out of a historian's heart to do so, to preserve history. And then it kind of crept up on him with this interest in the Halloween and things like that. You can, like I said, you can see him on newsreels where he's talking. He's like, I'm shocked. This is amazing. I can use this money to help keep the property up so we can preserve the history. Something happened along the way. I don't know whether it was after he passed and his wife took it over. There was another lady that was also helping out in charge, but she was the owner. In the beginning of the Dead Files, you will see her in the front lawn. This is before she passed. And Steve I'm not going to say his name right, but anyway, Steve is out there talking to her and says, now, if Amy finds out that, you guys should stay here or you should shut it down, what are you going to do? And she says something along the lines of this. Well, I'll listen and I'll take it to heart, but I'm not going to change anything I'm doing here. Now, this I will tell you, face to face, eye to eye. Amy told me that she went round and round trying to convince this woman to please stop this, put an end to it, because these children and this family is suffering. Even the ones that crossed, the little kids, some of the little kids that went over, are being called back and forced to go through it because people continue to go in there. Now, why am I talking about it? So you'll understand this and know that if you go there, what's happening? You see what I mean? Maybe people should just get together with their abilities and go in there and completely cleanse this place out. Cross everybody. The children, the mom, the dad's gone. Would you stay? Clean it all out. And then handle the rest. And if it stopped, that other thing would dissipate. You could get that to go too. Now, why is Kelly in the barn and not in the house? Think about it. Interesting. Yeah, I don't either, Slow. And again, the same thing with the Lizzie Borden or, anything, if you think about it again, I try to be so careful with my words. I'm not saying you're a jerk if you're going into an insane asylum and trying to get, people that couldn't put together a full sentence or a mind thought because they were on Thorazine or electric shock or gosh knows what chemicals or what shape they were in the first place to get into an insane asylum or a prison. And you're going in there and you're just taking everything that they're saying. Well, she says that, she wasn't crazy and the doctor did that, whatever. Really? Because if you were in there when they were alive, you wouldn't be able to believe what they were saying or sort it to begin with. And you're going to do it after they're dead. And 100 years later, how that energy has shifted and altered and fragmented and flipped back and forth. Think about it. Now, like I said, there were several cases that I know of up until the point, that we talked, that really blew her mind. And she really had a hard time with, and she was just angry. And if you're a Dead Files fan and you've watched, the first couple of seasons, you'll see another one where a guy had a hotel. I can't remember the name of it. Well, I know why I can't remember the name, but they wouldn't give it to you. Because the guy called him in there under kind of false pretenses, had got so caught up and almost to the point of being possessed, at least controlled, at the very least controlled by this ghost of a female. Well, portrayed itself as a female. I think there was a little bit more to it than that, but he was just trying to get them in there so he could find out more information about it so he could exploit it more, and actually was using the hotel to do such a thing and make money. And they wouldn't even give you the name of the location of it. That's how they got back at it. She was that pissed. No, because I'm not going to feed this guy. I'm not going to give this guy business. I don't blame her. This is similar, if not a whole lot worse. Think about it. And so is Lizzie Borden and some of the other cases. Do I think that these places should be saved in history? I think some. I'm a real big history buff. I'm real big into history. I got a problem with this one. I'm with Steve on that, where they just burnt that house to the ground because they didn't want it to become a tourist attraction. What would be so wrong as to maybe level this and put in a garden, maybe not a playground for kids, but, maybe put life back into it. Let life grow, let flowers and fruit trees and things like that, and just replenish this soiled earth, right? That would be my thought. Slow. Let's see what you got to say here, honey. I can't see it all. Would you go somewhere like Auschwitz given your gift? I have it really affected me with no real sensitivity. Heck no. And I go to Gettysburg, I won't even walk on the same side as the street as the orphanage. Won't even walk. I'll walk on the battlefield. I won't go anywhere near the orphanage. Nope. And I've told multiple people. And in fact, I spoke to Amy the day I was talking to her about this. And I said, we need to get some people together to go into that Gettysburg orphanage, hold back those entities that are holding back those kids, cross those kids, and then deal with those. And she's like, I'm all for it. I was like, let's set it up. And before we could, I had some other friends went in there and got a couple of those kids out and brought them to their place and had their first Christmas and showed them what love was like. And it took them a long time to get them to feel that love and that light energy until they were able to connect in and get spirit guides to walk them across, and got them out a few out at a time. And there's still more in there, but now we know it can be done in that case. So people are on it, but I think the very same thing could be done here. But I don't think that the people that are going in here to do that have that intent. I think some of them just like anything, don't really know, and they don't really understand what they're doing, or they're not even thinking about it. They're just trying to get that video or get that piece of evidence or solve the case. And, there's 50, maybe 150 different videos on YouTube that says the killer speaks. We know who did it. And if you're falling for that, I don't think anybody
This
here
guy's got a
is.
bridge she wants to sell you.
Exactly. So there's that. And like I said, Amy kind of went round and round with the owner. She would not, she absolutely refused to stop doing this. And it continues on today. And so does, and also the same with the Borden house. And there's a couple other ones that I won't mention now, but that's the really sick part of this. When you put money in front of anything like this, a person's well-being, being alive or dead, it's always going to be detrimental to it. But Steve, up to this point, what are you thinking?
Again, I've got ideas, and theories, but that's all they are. And I can see a little bit of each different one and how it fits within that context. But then I can see how it is that and how it's not that, how it may be this. I don't think there is any one answer in particular that we've found from what we have thus far. And I don't know if we ever will. I don't know what it would take at this point. Maybe a hidden diary, but then how would you authenticate it? It's just,
right.
I don't think it's one of those
I
just
think
unsolvable.
If Ed hadn't dug it up, I don't think it's going to get dug.
Yeah.
After 67 years.
You can pontificate on it and theorize and stuff, but that's just all it is. There is no, Ed comes the closest to unraveling the whole thing. And then there's stuff that he's not even sure. He can't definitively say it was this person or it wasn't this. There's some that he can eliminate, but as far as who actually did it, I'd be curious if you could pin him down and get him to really, really, drill down on something, what he would come up with. I don't think he would do it though. I don't, because that would.
Well, he's going to be very, in public, he's going to be very careful because he's got a lot of eyes on, when it comes to this thing, of course.
Yeah.
And he'll be the first one to tell you that he's no psychologist. And, of course, neither are we. The only degree I have is a BS degree from FU. So there's that.
Hey, I went there too. I got one of those.
Got one of those. So here we are again. I think this would astonish Dr. Epperly, because I think he would have thought that serial killer was higher. But I think the coolest part is I honestly don't know. And after watching probably 7 hours of details and facts and, throwing out all the BS, and it's still, I don't know. Now, this is what I've come to. And I did talk to Ed about this on the phone. And I said, Ed, I said, you're not going to believe what I'm about to tell you, because he really dug in and started listening to me when I talked about why I thought the serial killer went back upstairs. And we know that for a fact due to evidence with the shoe and the blood and the congenial, the whole thing. You heard him go through it. I won't drag you through it again. But he said that he said, well, what do you think, Cisco, after all the things you said? I said, well, I'm going to tell you this. I think it was a serial killer. And I believe that because of the evidence in this case that matches up to several other cases that hook up to that train. And it's the little details. I said, it's the pinning. It's not just the pinning, because sewing was there. Everybody sewed clothes. There was pins, there was sewing machines, there was fabric probably. And it was the way it was pinned. And he said, good eye. And I said, it was the lamps, it was the chimneys, the way they were put through. It was the covering, the double covering of the face. It was the covering of the mirror, which was not in every house, because as he stated, not everybody had the money to have mirrors back then, right? Yeah, I said, this is what I think. I said, I think it was 2. I don't think 2 did the killing. And he said, do tell. I love Ed so much. Do tell. And I said, I think this son of a bitch was a serial killer that hopped the train, did a little odd job here and there, maybe worked in one town, hopped the train, and then killed in another. But here's the clicker. Kelly was a traveling preacher. He was on trains constantly, back and forth, not just in the same town, but all over the Midwest, because they would send him as part of his payment for his teaching. They would tell him, you've got to go preach in the Methodist church on Sunday or Saturday night. And then by Sunday, you've got to be in this town and be in this one. What if crazy recognizes crazy? What if the insane recognize the insane? What if this little bastard recognized the serial killer and knew what he was going to do?
No,
Somebody
it wouldn't be
who
the first
loved,
time
yeah,
like is attracted like that.
yeah,
Lake
and
and Ing,
mhm,
the Hillside Stranglers. I mean, there's other cases where they've drifted together to go out and practice their craft of homicide, if you will.
I can't imagine this serial killer ever giving Kelly the time of day, but I can see it happening at a distance with kind of like a knowing glance where he doesn't even look at it, because I don't think Kelly could have looked him in the face. Tell you the truth, this guy was a quivering mass of jello, and I think he just knew to wait and follow, because the way he was pacing before he left, the house that night, because you heard all about how he was in the house pacing and talking and everything else, and the preacher and his family were out in a tent because he had asthma or something. And to me, I told Ed, I think he watched through a window, and he was the one saying the things that Amy is picking up. Make sure you kill them all. There's another upstairs. Doesn't mean he was in the house doing the killing with. It's just that he's projecting these words and these thoughts out there, kind of egging the guy on in his own way. Not saying that the guy even knew he was there.
That's chilling to think about that.
And I don't even think he ever went in the house. Now, Ed thinks it's possibly went in the house and he was the one with the bacon. But I asked Ed, I said, how in the world? But if he was impotent to the point where he was abused as a child and could only get, because I mean, if you guys know about child abuse and anything about this, and I won't get too much detail, but there's a certain point you get to where you can't get that unless there's violence and pain and all this other crap and the things that you're seeing. That's probably what Kelly needed to go in there and use the bacon. He thinks that's a possibility. And if Ed Epperly thinks it's a possibility, I do. But I can see him seeing that guy on the train or getting off the train and knowing that night there was going to be a murder. There was going to be a party in town that night for Kelly.
Yeah.
That's what I think happened.
That's just so chilling, though. But I believe that makes as much sense as anything and more than most.
And that's why Dr. Epperly has spent decades trying to place Kelly in the same place as some of these other murders, just to see whether or not he did it, or he was in the same place as this guy Mueller. They, like I said, the other book gave him the name. He's tried to do it, and if he can't do it, then there's some missing pieces here somewhere. But I think that's why that Amy saw him only in the barn, why he wouldn't go in the house, why he kept it an arm's length distance. Because even though he was possibly involved on the outskirts of it, it wasn't his thing. And he's scared of this guy. Of course he is. And he wouldn't invade on his territory. That's my thought, my theory, my opinion. And that's all it is my opinion.
Yeah.
Steve, chilling as all get out.
Yeah, it is. Plot twist. The murder was Dr. Epperly's father, and he spent all this time trying to plant false clues to clear his dad's name.
There you go.
Dr. Epperly, if you're listening, I'm
please forgive us. Please forgive us. But, it's really strange because you wonder, what, like he said,
I mean, it could be something so far out of left field like that that nobody's ever even considered it. We don't have enough to have even really form a good opinion about it. Really, I mean, Dr. Everly does, but it does.
And like I said,
I think he does. He's dug, and he knows more about that case than anybody except the people that actually did it. I think that'd be a fair assessment.
Yep, and all the books and things like that, they were written beforehand. There's a couple that, if you get your hands on them, understand that, some of them start and they have the narrative that F.F. Jones did it. So they try to prove it that way. And then the other ones they tried to Kelly, and then you've got the ones that just say serial killer and Kelly just happened to be there. But this guy, I mean, there's something so creepy about that. And the way that Amy talked about, talked about it, she said, Cisco, there's just so much in there. And she said the thing that bothered her the most is that it continues, that the people wouldn't listen. She said that's the hardest part. The other one that she mentioned, and then we can go, was the one in the restaurant. And I don't know if you guys know this, but there was actually something that I got the idea about the soul collector for Cabin 22 from that episode where she called it the soul collector, that actually was an ancient being, never been human, that was on that property. And anybody that went in that restaurant, the customers, the people that worked there, the family that owned it, were absolutely, she looked at him point blank and said, if you die here, you're not crossing. He's got your soul. You better get out of here. And the people just didn't believe her. And the father died and several other people died there. And that stuff always eats her up, because when you give people this information and you say, this isn't something to play with, this is real deal, and they don't listen, it blows your mind. So there you go. If you've learned anything from this, if it makes you a better paranormal investigator, if it makes you help you understand how ghosts are, my heart goes out to the Moore family. I think that they need to rest. I think that, somebody needs to go in there and help that mom get those kids crossed, and so she can go with them. Enough is enough. And, I don't think any amount of evidence that can come out of there is going to elevate the paranormal anymore that justifies torturing these souls one more day. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Steve?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It is enough's enough. I think that said it right there. Let's move on to something else, whatever the next big thing is.
Yep, and that's it. We are done. I think that's a full lid, Steve. I think we've looked at this inside out, upside down, and sideways.
Round of applause there. We've looked at it from
and
every
for you
angle.
too, for the chat,
10,000
for the
feet
chat.
up, from several feet below, from side to side, front to back. I don't know how many more different ways we could have looked at it. And inconclusive was about the only conclusion that we could reach. The conclusion is
inconclusive. Like I said,
that's
it's just
happen. That's not a bad thing.
So, what is the moral of the story? Probably
don't leave your axe out where people can get it.
Yeah, that's just wild, right? And again, that's why
the train tracks.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I mean, this was probably 25 years ago, somewhere around 25 years ago. I found a little house out in a little town, which is like a whole different story. And the train tracks were like right in the backyard. And I'm looking around going, man, I don't like this. I mean, there's a lot of axe murders that happened. This 25 years ago, I was saying this kind of thing, and being aware of that, but it's absolutely did happen.
There's still a lot of weird things happen. Look up Freight Train Riders of America, FTA. You will hear about some just amazing crimes and murders and some insane stuff. There's still killers that ride those rails. The days of the hobo and the drifting murderer, they're still around.
So, maybe not leave your axe in a stump outside. Everybody did. Now, again, that was not, if somebody tells you that axe was sitting in a block of wood, it wasn't. That axe was broken on the tip, and it was used to bust up coal with the back end of it. So, again, look into this case if you want a little bit more, if you want to dig deeper than we did. This is it right here. And I absolutely give special thanks to Dr. Ed Epperly. I love you, my friend, and be talking to you soon.
You have his address. I'm going to send him a copy of my book. He talked about the first time how much he enjoyed going to the Smoky Mountains. I think he would enjoy reading.
He would enjoy it. He would love to get that from you, Steve. And I'll get that to you and send him an email about it. Here is the book, the VilliscaBook.com. Please get the book. Dr. Epperly, that's what he gets from it. If you're in Iowa, he's still giving seminars, 87 years old. I guarantee you'll be riveted and on the edge of your seat. And thanks to Pixabay and VidEasy
I'd
and
like to take him
Giphy
out
and
to
YouTube
lunch,
Audio
just
Library.
sit and
I would too.
chat with him. Not necessarily
Like
about that, but just about anything. I mean, he's such a
a
fascinating
wonderful human
character
being.
and
Wonderful human
sharp
being.
as a tack. I hope I'm that. I'm not
Mhm.
even that sharp
He's
now,
an
but
inspiration.
I aspire to be that sharp when I'm 80 something.
Yep. So
What
there
is
you
he,
go.
86?
The last episode is the whole reason. Thanks, Uncommon. The last episode is the whole reason I did it from the very beginning. People said, why do you want to do murders about little kids? Because people won't leave them alone, and these kids haven't crossed, and we need to get them crossed. And that's my main objective. So if you're in Iowa and you think that you can do that, get together with a couple of different people with abilities, with the right intent, and go in there and get these people crossed. All right? And that would
It's
make
all
me
about the
very, very
intent.
happy. Very, very happy. I love you all. Steve, tell us what you're doing this week, because I know you're just a busy old beaver.
Got a video premiering tomorrow that I think everybody will love over on Among the Missing. I don't want to give anything away, but you want to tune in for it. Right after that, I'll be over on First Floor Audio with Lee G. Tomorrow's Night Rider, WRITER. He's doing the music. He did 17 tracks for 13 past midnight. Now he's working on
He's so
tracks
good.
for ATM. And he really, really is. And also, I brought him into the fold. I'm going to hire him as to do some work for the channel in some other respects. It's grown over there. It's blown up. Cisco's going to be helping us out too. We don't know exactly what she's going to be doing, but we're taking her along for the ride too.
Causing problems and taking names.
That's it.
I'm joking.
Sergeant at Arms.
Casita, are you? Yeah, I'm fine with that. Bouncer, sergeant at arms, I'll do all that. I wear so many different hats.
Going to be
Steve.
a part of mine and Nicole Midnight Society. Cisco's going to be in our wedding. Her and Sandy are still duking it out over who's going to be the best man and who's going to be
May the best man win.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
So
there
that's
go.
coming
And
soon. Big announcement
Casita,
coming soon from Nicole Midnight Society and I in about a month's time. So just hang in there. Plus, go check our channel out. Insomniac Radio Theater. I've got so many I have to pause and think which one I'm talking about. Go check it out. I'm going to be doing, people have asked me for years to do relaxation and guided meditation. I've licensed some scripts. I'm going to be doing that. I'm already putting a little bit of stuff up like that over there.
Stiff as a board.
Stuff like that. But you're going to enjoy it. Right now, my favorite video over there, we've got 8 hours of rain, and it's a dark screen. There's still some graphics, and this is, I've listened to it. I've put myself to sleep with it. Just a light rain, and you can hear like dogs barking on the background, and the graphic is rain falling on these old abandoned cars in the woods, and there's moss and stuff. Go check it out. Insomniac Radio Theater.
Yep. And this one right here, note to self, remember to find slow suggestion. Tom waits at piano. Are you talking about the one where he says, the piano has been drinking and my necktie is asleep? That one I love. That. It's great. And if it's got, you got 8 hours of rain over there, you better go shut that spigot off. You're going to have a flood over there, Steve.
Yeah.
I love you, my friend.
I love you too, Cisco. Thanks.
It's been something. It's been something. What are we going to hit next? I'll tell you what we're going to hit next. Because summer's coming, and because I am on the Jersey Shore for a little while longer, I will tell you this right now. I'm thinking about doing, I don't know what it is about the early 1900s. Something about that nostalgia I just love, Steve. I'm going to do
era. That's a wonderful era.
The thing that started, I'm going to do the thing that started Jaws. We are going to do the shark attacks of 1916 right here on the Jersey Shore and tell a little bit about the people.
Wait. That's going to be so good.
And I think that's
we're going to need a bigger boat, folks.
We're going to need a bigger boat, baby. That's for sure. And I'm so glad y'all are here. Thank you for all the new subscribers. Thank you so much for commenting after the videos. It really does help. YouTube has noticed me so much that they're actually taking down some of my videos. I couldn't be prouder. So thank you so much. And, please give it a like. And again, my full intent was just to help you be better, discernment and to understand that there's a lot of good people out there trying to do the right thing in the paranormal. And just because you're out there getting evidence, that's fine. But just understand that there are consequences you may not see, just like when you play with a Ouija board, and you very well might bring one of these buggers home.
Plus,
and
remember,
the serial killer is not in that house. That serial killer is not in that house.
These are real people. These are real human lives that we were dealing with here. So be respectful in all that you do to everybody.
There you go. There you go. And if you think he would be in that house, why would he be in that house? It would have to be like a John Wilkes Booth that pop up everywhere he's being talked about. Because if it is a serial killer, he's got 300 other locations he could be in, and that's just the ones we know of.
There's that Tulpa thing.
Think about that. All right, guys? There is something evil in there, but not him. Good night, everybody. I love you. How about a little light on the way out? Remember to be the light. Everybody's going through something. Some people have really hard days. Some people are dealing with loss. Sometimes people are dealing with so much confusion and dark stuff coming to you. Try to remember to keep that light on. It's hard. Some days are harder than others. But here's a little on the way out on keep that light burning, folks. We're going to keep the lights on for you. I love you, Steve. I love everybody in this chat.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, mods. Thank you, gatekeepers. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night, Nicole.
Good night, sweetheart. Love you, baby.